Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. Hello and welcome. I've got about 10 minutes to go through my transition period and how I got to where I am now. So all I'm going to run through is my role since leaving, about the company I work for, current large projects that we have, my current role, and a bit of resettlement advice or advice for people that are coming into construction. As I said, I'm delivery side, project management, contract management, and that's my role at the moment. I've been out almost 6 years, it'll be 6 years in November. Since I left my first role, I took up a facilities manager's role for the City of London Academy, doing plan preventative maintenance and working off programme. I did that for a year, just to get a bit of experience out into the wide world, and then I moved back into the construction sector for a company called Battersea Builders in Battersea, doing manside roofs, side returns, internal reconfiguration for private residents and small commercial projects. From there, I moved to Berkeley Homes as a project manager at East Thames over in Woolwich. I did a grade 2 listed cut and carve refurb, the modular construction behind, all the urban realm works, and a project on behalf of Crossrail, as it was 4.5 metres from Crossrail's new station at Woolwich Arsenal, and that mainly involved temporary works. So I cut my teeth in the temporary works area there. From there, I took a completely different direction and moved to Campbell Smith & Co. Over in Lambeth, and they were a conservation and restoration company. I've got a thing for conservation, restoration. Did a lot of projects for St James and Less Church, Parham House, and the complete upgrade of the banqueting hall at Fishmongers. Great projects. Unfortunately, I was made redundant from there after working there for about 6 months. And then I moved on to my current company now, it's Avondale Construction. I was a project manager on a £230 million hotel residential mix over in Temple. Did that for about 7-8 months, and then Nick, the MD, offered me the role of senior contracts manager, which I accepted, and it's a really good role to be in at the moment. I've had quite a few roles since leaving the army. However, all of these of varying degrees of experiences, which have greatly enhanced my construction knowledge, which is basically underlying, give me the fundamentals to be able to do the contract management role as I am now. So about Avondale. Avondale was established in 1978, based in Camden Town, family-run business, construction logistics specialist and principal contractor. It's over 40 years experience, and we aim to maintain a reputation as a leading logistics specialist and construction provider, which we do, and we do that very well. Following services we provide: construction, general construction work, logistics, so traffic management plans, logistics supervisors, traffic management for main contractors, principal contractors, and smaller projects for street works, so on and so forth. Occupational health, we provide site nurses to sites to do occupational health visits. Site security, we're an SIA approved accreditor, and we provide site security as well. Waste management, we're a registered waste carrier, and we do consulting on all of the above. Current large projects we've got at the moment, so we're doing 9 Elms Park at Battersea, Sugar House Island in Stratford, One Braham in Aldgate East, Ealing Filmworks, Arundel Great Court in Temple, Springfield Hospital in Tooting, 80 The Strand, which has just kicked off, and Alexander Stadium in Birmingham for the Commonwealth Games, and that's just started on Monday as well. These are a mixture of principal contracting, logistics, or a mixture of principal contracting and logistics. Current clients that we do have are St George West London, part of the Berkeley Group, McLaughlin and Harvey, Sir Robert McAlpine, Multiplex, and Store Holdings for a project down at Arundel Great Court, which is a privately held company, And we've got many other projects, smaller projects throughout London and surrounding areas. So my current role as a senior contracts manager, I generally set up new site documents. So I write the construction phase health and safety plan, contract management plan, site logistics plan, environmental management plan, emergency response plan, site security plan, and all the risk assessments and method statements involved for everybody on site, from manual handling, traffic marshalling, waste disposal, labourers, general handymen, so on and so forth. And at the moment, we've had a big drive for COVID-19. So we've had to do a COVID-19 set of RAMs that we can push out to all the sites and then be adapted as and when necessary. I also carry out site visits and site audits. So site visits generally just to have a look around and make sure site managers, project managers are happy on site. And site audits, where I go and do a health and safety audit, look at all the site documentation, and then feedback to MD and the operations director of how we are and how we're performing. I do integrated management system audits, all our files on SharePoint. I check all those, make sure all the risk assessments, method statements, and everything are up to date and current, and all signed by those involved. I monitor performance and manage change on sites. When I go out to site and do the visits, I have a look at the contract, have a look at the work that's going on, and monitor and manage how we're changing, how we're adapting for whoever we're working for and how they want to change. I do temporary works. I'm a temporary works coordinator, so I manage the temporary works advice and guidance. We have temporary works coordinators on site, but I'm also here to give a little bit of advice and guidance to those on site as well. I deal with all our lift and operations and lift plans. I'm an appointed person, NPOR's appointed person, so I sign off our lift plans for cranes, HIABs, forklifts and telehandler plans for any sites that don't have a resident appointed person. So that falls on my desk and I do those as well. Health and safety advice and guidance. I resettle NEBOSH General NEBOSH Construction to underline and underpin my experience. And I offer help, advice and guidance when I do my site visits based on health and safety as well. And I attend site progress meetings. So all the meetings that we have on each individual site, I try and get out to the sites at least once a week. This current climate, I've not managed to do that as much as I'd like to, with other projects kicking off, doing all their site paperwork. But I try and get out to site as much as I can, attend the progress meetings, and then advise, guide, and help out where necessary. And that's pretty much my role in Avondale Construction. It's a great role, limited time in the office, generally 1 day in the office, and then 4 days visiting the sites. And it's great. I get out and about and I get a chance to see everybody. My finishing off, it's for me, it's a bit short. A bit of resettlement advice for people that are getting out and looking to change. I started early on my resettlement. I started about 3 years before I was leaving. I wrote a CV, I got it out there, I put it on Careers in Construction, CV Library, Monster, and I started applying for jobs at about 3 years out. From there, I got a couple of job offers. I went to the interviews knowing full well that I couldn't take the job, purely to get some interview experience. Look at the questions they were asking, my responses, and just to get out there, get a bit of experience and get a feel for it. I joined the army at 16. I'd never been to a job interview before, and I thought it'd be the best thing for me to do is get out there and do that. And I was quite lucky. I got offered a few jobs, but I couldn't take them. But it was good to get experience. I also applied, took 2 weeks leave, and took some work experience with Wilmot Dixon in Cobham. And from that work experience, I worked with the health and safety managers and the project managers. And I just asked what job they do, how they got there, what qualifications they have, and what their day-to-day work was like. And that enabled me then to sit down and plan what I was going to do for my resettlement, how I would then retrain, requalify to get me going in the direction I wanted to go. Ideally, I wanted to go straight to project management, but I went into facilities management. But I used my previous roles as stepping stones to get to the role I'm in now. And everything that I've done previously has given me the building blocks and the fundamentals to carry out my role more efficiently. And it's helped me all the way. I didn't expect to come out of the army and get my dream job. It's taken me possibly four jobs to get to where I am now. I've got a great job, really love my job, get out and about, and it's really good. What I will say is that if you are looking to come into construction, have a look at doing your CSCS card as soon as possible and get that on your CV, and do your SMSTS, Site Manager Safety Training Scheme, and get that done, get that completed, and get it on your CV. Because without those two things, you're pretty much won't get on site. Without those, everybody who comes to our sites needs to have at least a CSCS card for the relevant trade. Managers need SMSTS. So as soon as you can get those done, and that'll hold you in good stead. And if you get the opportunity, have a look at joining a professional body. Those SAPers are out there: Institute of Royal Engineers, Institute of Facilities Management, Chartered Institute of Builders, Institute of Engineering Technology, so on and so forth. There are plenty out there, and they all have resettlement ideas and resettlement courses for guys that come out of the army that are tailored to ex-forces. So have a look at those. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. That's my career from resettling, leaving the army, 5 roles to get to here, and this is where I am. I work for a great company. They invest in me, and they continue to invest in me, and I put my investment back into the company.
Great, thank you, Mark. That's fantastic. Okay, we'll pass over now to Will, if he's there.
Well, Angela, hopefully you can hear me.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, I'll just wrap my presentation up. Okay, great. Hopefully that presentation is loading or about to load for you. So yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Will Brown. I'm a senior project manager with Turner & Townsend, and hopefully I can sort of provide an insight into a slightly different part of the construction industry, which is sort of more office based than the one that Mark's just described. So I'm sort of briefly just sort of set the scene, give you an idea of my background, talk through some of the resettlement resources that I found useful, and then talk a bit about what it means to work in a consultancy environment and the 2 roles that I've held since leaving. So just to sort of give you a benchmark, this is sort of a brief overview of my background. So I graduated in 2012 and joined the military straight after that. So a year at Sandhurst, and then commissioned into the Royal Engineers. First posting to Germany, where I immediately went on a construction exercise to Kenya for 3 months. And then for the next sort of 18 months, went into the armoured engineering training cycle. So sort of CT 1 to 4 training culminating in, deploying to batters. And then I posted back to the UK into basically the same training cycle again. So BG Squadron Ops in an armoured engineer squadron, culminating in deploying to Estonia on Opera Brit. So relatively short career in the army of 5 years. Most of that was sort of training for the sort of general armoured engineering warfighting role. I do have a little bit of site experience, but that's sort of limited to Royal Engineer construction in Kenya for 3 months. So I don't have quite the same sort of background as Mark, I guess, to sort of front me up. So last day was back in April 2018. So I've been out for a couple of years. My first role was with a company called Jacobs, where I was a project manager working on HS2 Limited. And then now I hold a role as an SPM with Turner & Townsend. I work with Birmingham City Council implementing their clean air zone. So just some sort of things that I found useful in resettlement. Obviously, you all know about Build Force, and I found them really helpful. And it is actually really nice to be able to sort of feed back into that a little bit. I spoke to both Caroline and Angela when I was in resettlement, and I found their sort of help and guidance really useful. the sort of ability for them to try and queue up work placements, I think, is fantastic. And if you're able to take advantage of that, I'd sort of thoroughly recommend it. I left it too late. So in contrast to Mark, I probably started properly looking 2 months out from leaving. So quite a way off the 3 years. But if you're able to queue up a work placement, I think it's a fantastic thing to take advantage of. Noting the current circumstances probably limit that somewhat. But the sooner you're able to engage, as sort of Mark said, the better. So yeah, sort of lean in as soon as you can. There's a resource called the Defence Academy, which is based at Shrivenham, which I wasn't aware of at all until I started the resettlement process. But it's actually a fantastic resource, and the Business Skills College in particular offers a number of sort of workshops and means for sort of upskilling you, whether you're sort of leaving or staying within the military. So I'd recommend just sort of browsing the website and seeing what's available. I've sort of screenshot a couple of the things they offer on the slideshow there, but in particular you can do the APM PMQ for free through the Defence Academy, so I'd recommend doing that. People sort of often ask, what qualifications do you need to sort of be a project manager? I've got the APM PMQ, and I'm sort of aligning myself to the APM sort of chartership route just to sort of guide my development a bit. Some people like to get all of the qualifications they can, so Agile and Prince 2 and all the rest of it. And great, if you're able to and you've got the time and you can afford it, that's just gives you a bigger sort of toolbox of things to dip into. But from sort of my experience, the APM has been good enough to get me where I am and has stood me in good stead. And then just sort of to touch on networking and job hunting, I found networking quite difficult, sort of generally quite introverted, and found it a bit awkward reaching out. But once you sort of get into the swing of it, it sort of snowballs, if you like. One thing will lead to the next, and you've got to be prepared for a few sort of dead ends, but it's a good thing to invest in. And I've also found that having a military network is really useful once you're in employment, because it sort of allows you to reach into different parts of the organisation that you might not have a sort of gateway to otherwise. So I'd sort of lean into it, and people are really receptive. If you're sort of sitting there thinking, I feel a bit bad sort of reaching out and trying to burden someone, but you'll be amazed at how many people are just prepared to have a quick sort of 45-minute chat to sort of give you a steer or whatever. And so the more you sort of lean in, I think the more you'll get out. Okay. So just to sort of set the context for what it means to be a project management in a consultancy, it's worth just noting sort of how consultancies operate. So rather than a sort of client organisation, they're not so steady state. They're always looking for opportunities that are on the horizon, and the current commissions are always sort of falling away. So it's quite a transient environment, if you like, noting that some of the projects are huge and will be lasting for years and years. So there is some stability in there, of course. But that also gives a lot of opportunity for you to dot around between different client organisations, if that makes sense. So, for example, I worked for Jacobs on HS2, and I now work for Turner & Townsend with Birmingham City Council. But Turner & Townsend also have commissions with Highways England, Crossrail. They had a lot of work with Heathrow Airport until recently, and so that gives you the ability to sort of move between different organisations much more freely than you would have been otherwise. And for me, I found that a really sort of attractive prospect, because I wanted to sort of broaden my project management experience, if you like. I just want to caveat that with a note on the sort of client and employer relationship. So I found that when I went to work for Jacobs, I went straight to the HS2 office, got an HS2 laptop and phone, and actually worked more or less exclusively with HS2 staff, although I was sort of paid by Jacobs, and I didn't really have that link back to the parent company. So I think that's partially naivety on my behalf, and sort of not realising that you have to be really quite proactive about managing your career going forwards, and sort of establishing the relationships that you need within your sort of parent organisation to make that work. But actually what I found was that wasn't happening in the sort of environment I found myself in. So I looked to sort of step out, and I made some good contacts whilst I'd been at HS2, and was able to transition relatively easily through to Turner & Townsend, and also sort of step up a grade in terms of roles as well. So now I'm in a much sort of more close-knit team. I've got a pretty clear idea of how I can progress within that organisation, and I'm sort of much more comfortable there. Worth just sort of touching as well on the scale of the projects that I worked on. So, I mean, HS2 is tens of billions of pounds, and it's vast, and it was really interesting to get an insight into how those large infrastructure projects work at the client level. But I also found I was, a relatively small cog in an enormous machine, and your sort of sphere of influence is relatively limited. And as someone who didn't have that much project management experience in the sort of civilian world, I sort of felt a bit out of my depth at times. And so I found it useful to step across into not just a new organisation, but also a project that's of a much smaller scale and of which I can have a much better grasp of. So the Clean Air Zone in Birmingham is sort of fairly controversial as well, and there's plenty of opposition, but it's sort of 60 or 70 million pounds, which is significantly less, but still substantial. What that means is that my sort of day-to-day involvement with the project is, sort of ranges from stakeholder meetings with other local authorities and central government departments, which is really interesting to sort of gauge that relationship and manage it. Linking in with the council's sort of finance and procurement teams to get a sort of detailed understanding of the costs and forecast them going forward, undertake procurement activity, which I've never been involved in before. And I also get involved in the delivery side of things, but although from a sort of office-based perspective. So I have sight of all of the infrastructure delivery works, which is, signs, poles, cameras, that sort of thing, but also the back office IT development, which sort of appeals to the sort of technical side of my my sort of experience as well. And so working on a smaller project where you're able to experience the whole sort of range of the project life cycle, I find quite satisfying and also really helpful in just sort of setting me up for the next steps, if you like. And so I'll sort of hand over to Simon shortly, but I just wanted to touch on what progression within a consultancy means. And there's sort of two strands as I see it from where I'm at the moment. The first is the technical strand. So, perhaps going down the chartership route for project management, program manager, project director, that sort of route. The other side of it is the sort of business generation side of things. So a director in Turner and Townsend has a really good knowledge of the markets in which TNT operate and the business opportunities that are on the horizon and how to bid for those works and position the company so that we're well placed to secure those positions. And so that's something that does interest me, but is probably a weakness, so something I'd have to sort of focus on. And so if you were looking to sort of step into the consultancy world, but slightly higher up than I am, for example, it's just worth being aware that there would be sort of expectations on you to be able to sort of step into that business generation role. I'm sure you'd be up to it, but it's just worth knowing that. And I'm sure it's not necessarily immediately obvious. But for example, one of our directors is an ex-SAPA colonel, and he manages our framework with DE&S, and so there's quite a good link there between a market that he's wholly familiar with and mixing that with the sort of the civilian consultancy world and making that work. So that's a good example of how you probably have better knowledge of some markets than you appreciate. So I am sort of a little bit over my 10 minutes, but this sort of slide just sort of summarises the services that TNT have within our scope, and I sort of sit in the program management arm of it, but there's lots of other stuff that you can sort of branch out into. I think Simon is just going to touch on, given the sort of current climate, what it is that we look for and what sort of opportunities are on the horizon at the moment. So hopefully you're able to jump in there, Simon.
Thanks, Will. So I'm the recruiter at Turner and Townsend, and I'm one of 15 recruiters, and I specialise more on the advisory side of the business, which encompasses sort of technology and data, health and safety, consulting, which involves sort of business change and risk, and also we have a contract services division, which is probably less relevant to the discussion today, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the type of roles that we would normally recruit for under normal circumstances before lockdown, and obviously as we come out of lockdown. So project management's already been covered, but the skills needed for that type of role are usually sort of managing complex project schemes through the whole project life cycle. Communication, information management, and also tech aspects of design, procurement, implementation, and closeout. Obviously, the project management qualifications are important. We also look for people who've done successful delivery of projects, people that are proactive and flexible, and excellent communication skills. We tend to bring people in as project managers rather than bring in people as senior project managers, because you need to obviously get the commercial consulting experience under your belt first. So that's what we tend to do. I'm also going to mention a couple of other roles, as Mark mentioned earlier, that there's other areas of the business you can go into to start out at, and then work your way to sort of PM role if that route isn't available. So there's other areas we can look at. So there's program planning. There's another area, the sort of program management area, with focus on a holistic approach to schedule, risk, change, and cost management across the program. We look for people with good sort of Microsoft Excel and Microsoft project experience, resolving complex scheduling project problems, for example. We also look at project controls, which is more gathering and analyzing project data to keep cost and scheduling on track. As Mark also mentioned earlier, we do recruit facilities management as well, and people have started in that area and then progressed into a project management role. So we look for people that can undertake strategic facilities management reviews, procurement of facilities management services, operational support, but we tend to take people on with a relevant degree or degree qualified, and then we can train them up in the role. We also look at, we recruit health and safety managers as well, and consultants who can deliver health and safety consultancy services. Again, we can train people up and put them on a professional qualification route. NEBOSH certificate is usually essential, but we can support that as well. So those are the type of roles we recruit for in the Midlands, South East, South West. And the clients, as Will already mentioned, is sort of local government, where we get most of our business, central government as well, but we also do a lot of work in the private sector. We also look for people with program risk, who want to go into that area to start with and then branch into PM afterwards. So people who have experience, background of running risk reviews, workshop facilitations, risk strategies, risk analysis, that type of thing. As things stand at the moment, we're very limited on the type of roles that we're recruiting for. The main areas that we're recruiting at the moment are sort of business intelligence, so people that can develop reports and dashboards using tools such as Power BI, SQL Server, and reporting services. Another area that would lead to project management would be business analysts. There's another area we're recruiting for at the moment, and that's mainly for central government organisations. MOD, for example, and Environment Agency are the type of organisations we're working for at the moment. Again, there's no set skills for those type of roles at the moment. We're quite open to what we look for, but as long as you've got the softer skills, the problem solving, the stakeholder management, the analytical skill set. So that hopefully gives you an idea of the roles we're currently recruiting for and roles that we recruit from the wider business. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Simon, that's great. Thank you very much. And Will, thank you for that excellent presentation. Very, very informative. Okay, so if I could invite Mark, Will and Simon just to turn their mics off and put their cameras on. We'll start asking some questions. So Simon, we'll pick up on the recruitment queries that I've noted down. And again, to our audience, just please turn your camera off and turn your camera on and your mic off if you want to ask a question. You're more than welcome at any time. So Simon, for our service leavers and veterans that are listening, so they may have a strong 5, 10, 20-year military experience. How do employers translate that? So where they may not have some of the skills or have the degree, which is the normal criteria, how are employers able to kind of translate the experience that they do have and see the value and the worth in it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, if they've got the softer skills, so the organizational skills, for example, any experience of delivering projects, that type of thing, any experience in managing multiple projects, or any of those sort of softer skills, we can look at and try and interpret and build on that experience into what we need. So we would probably bring somebody in as a more junior project manager and then get them trained up by that route.
No, that's good to hear. And you do have a healthy military contingent within Turner Townsend, don't you? So
that's correct. Yes,
it's a tried and tested method. Yeah. So just to give faith to everybody listening that the experience that you have got, the military experience you have got, is valued. And more often than not, that's what they're looking for when they bring you into these types of organisations. Okay, Angus, do you have a question? You turn your mic off.
Yeah, I do. I've got a question for Mark. The same at the CSS green card. I've just done a work trial road construction a couple weeks ago in Essex, and that specific site don't need a green card. So if I was getting a work trial next couple of weeks, would they expect to have the green card? 17th of July.
Say again, sorry, I couldn't hear that one.
Would they expect me to have the green card if we wait for another work trial before the 17th of July on another site? So we went on a site a couple of weeks ago, they wouldn't expect me to have it.
Oh, so they're asking you for work experience of a CSCS card, Angus, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and
yes, the majority of sites, all of our sites that we have, if you don't have a CSCS card, you won't get on site. With the CSCS card, you do the Site Management Safety Training Scheme test, which proves that you have an understanding of health and safety, and from there you then get your CSCS card. So the card is just proof that you've completed the test and you have an understanding of health and safety.
Right. So is anything stopping me trying to get another work trial before I do my actual test for the green card?
Say again, sorry?
Is anything stopping me trying to get another work trial before I do my CSS green card test?
Can you still do work experience?
Yeah.
For work experience, it all depends on the company. They may be able to sort of waiver that as long as you're accompanied on site at all times by the site management team. So that's down to that individual that you're having the work experience with. Right. Like I said, for myself, I started early, and my CSCS card was one of the first things that I had and I got while I was still serving, and that allowed me then to obviously put it on my CV, get it out there, and do some work experience without having to worry. But if you speak to the companies that you're going to plan on doing work experience with, say I don't have my CSCS card, but I'm looking at doing it, they might waiver that as long as you're accompanied.
Right. Okay, because I did one a couple of weeks ago, like I said, they were fine with me not having it. So.
Okay, I think typically you're escorted around site on a work placement. They tend not to let you run free. So, yes. But just double check with them.
Okay. What was the other site manager course, Mark? Did you say as well? What is that called?
Your SMSTS?
Yeah.
You're just your Site Management Safety Training Scheme.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, Angus?
No, that's it, thank you.
You okay? No bother at all. Good to see you. Okay, Mark, just whilst we're talking about, you referenced in your day job some of the plans that you do, some of the plans that you write out, which are a very comprehensive list and very, very, very impressive. In terms of the training that you were given to do that, did the company provide that?
Well, no. It's through my experience of doing that. Obviously, through my doing the facilities management role, my Battersea Builders and project manager at Berkeley Homes. It's mainly at Berkeley Homes where I cut my teeth in civilian construction. Military construction is hugely different. All you're generally worried about is time. When you go to a tier 1 contractor like Berkeley Homes, you have to be more commercially aware. And they're very paperwork, health and safety and policy heavy. And it was a quick learning process, and you pretty much expected to know it straight away. So there's a lot of long hours to get in the paperwork, get in the contractual side of it, and a lot of reading outside of the day job. So with writing the construction phase health and safety plan, the contract management plan, and all the other plans, I generally write those off the client. If we're doing a principal contracting job for the clients, they give us their contract management plan, and I write our construction health and safety phase plan and our contract management plan off theirs with their requirements. So it's not a cut and paste. We have our templates in the company, but I insert all the site-specific information, so working hours, gate locations, logistics, hoists, cranes, any other specialist requirements. I take them from their plans, put them into our plans, and then I write everything else that sits on the back of the annexes as well.
Okay, and that's a very good point. And Will, I don't know if you found this as well, in terms of turning your hand to the role. There's obviously examples and pro formas and guidance there. But what would your advice be for somebody that's kind of got a role scheduled and day one is looming? Is there enough guidance and support by colleagues, enough examples in a library to work your way through? It's not as bad as it seems.
So just sort of go back a step, I guess. What I found in my transition is that I stepped into a role with people who had been serving in the military before. So they had quite a good appreciation of what I did and didn't know and what I was and wasn't sort of immediately capable. And I actually thought that was quite, I was quite lucky in that regard. And I'd sort of recommend that if you're able to sort of line that up, it's no bad thing, because you sort of get eased a bit more gently into it. The sort of position I found myself in now with TNT is that, particularly taking advantage of the military network, is that if I'm not sure, there are plenty of people who I can ask, and there's a wealth of experience in the organisation. The sort of papers that I produce are more sort of business cases, for example. So I have had some training in the Treasury has its own sort of format for producing business cases called the 5-case model, and based on the Green Book approach. And I have had some training on that, and that sort of sets out what you'd expect to find in each case. But sort of similar to Mark, my sort of role in pulling the business case together is sort of having an appreciation of how each part of the case fits together, and that's just sort of proactively getting involved and developing that understanding. But the sort of the bulk of the evidence isn't my job to produce, so that's other consultants' roles, and I'm sort of tying it together, if you like. So it doesn't require necessarily a detailed technical understanding of all the components that are going into it, but it's the weaving it together, which is more of a sort of soft skill, something you're taught, I guess.
Okay, no, I think that's going to be pleasing for our audience to hear, because I know a few of them have lined up jobs and they're starting, so you're just going to get a bit anxious and a bit excited about the new role. Okay, a few more questions that are coming in. David, if you're able to turn your mic off. And Angus, are you able to turn your camera off? Thank you.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, David.
Hi. Just left in January after doing 7 years. But before I joined the army, I worked as a project supervisor, and then went into quantity surveying. I've worked on the contractor side and the client side for more than 7 years. I'm now, after I finished the army, I got injured. So before that, I started a course. I started my quantity surveying degree, and at the minute I'm in my last year. But I want to get onto the field, and initially I wanted to do some placement, but I didn't get through any, so I decided to start searching for a job. Also, because of my experience was just before the army, so it's been a while. But I still have the experience as a quantity surveyor, both the client side and then the contractor side. At the minute, I'm searching for a job, or even if I can do placement just to get a first hand in UK quantity surveying. I don't know if you have any advice for me.
Yeah, Mark or Will?
For me, to go in my placement with Wilmot Dixon, I wrote to pretty much every company. So I wrote to Kia, Wilmot Dixon, BAM, Persimmon Homes, you name it. I wrote to them and asked every one of them, can I have some work experience? And only Wilmot Dixon got back to me and said, yes, come to Cobham. But it's persistence. There's plenty of people on LinkedIn. There's lots of companies out there. And it's just, I just asked everybody, look, I'm coming out, I'm looking at transition. I don't know what to do. Can I have some help and guidance? Can I come on site for a couple of weeks? So I just took 2 weeks leave and that's what I did. So yeah, I'll just say be persistent, because eventually if you ask enough people, someone will say yes eventually.
And Will, any advice?
Yeah.
I just sort of echo that as well, and just sort of point out that it's a tough climate at the moment. Recruitment is not as strong as it would be otherwise, so don't sort of take it personally either. But as Mark said, the sort of the more people you ask, the more likely you are to get a yes. Yeah.
And just on that point then, Will, I don't know if Simon can join us. In terms of who you ask within an organisation, should it be the HR and recruitment teams, or just a general point of contact you find on LinkedIn? Who would be the most successful person?
I would say the recruiter.
Okay.
Sometimes going direct to the hiring manager would be a good shout as well. I would also recommend making sure that your LinkedIn profile and your social media presence is up to date and you're visible as much as possible, because that can help you and your network on there will get you where you need to get to quicker.
Okay, and if you don't have an HR or a recruiter's name within an organisation, can you just refer to the title and it will find its way there?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do.
Best
okay,
thing, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the question, David. Okay, Matthew Pascoe, if you put your camera on and your mute off.
Okay.
Hi, Matthew.
Just a quick one for me. Obviously, you go through resettlement like everyone else, or those veterans that have now left. It seems to me that you follow trends through resettlement cycles. So security was years ago, and then project management seems to be very much in now for service leavers to do prior to getting out. Is there any of the individuals that are online today that would suggest one over the other, or must-haves, or possibly due to what's going on now with the pandemic, forecasting out to the future where actually there will be a shortfall for jobs in the future? So whether there's going to be a gap in the market where actually in construction you could maybe get ahead of the game and do the qualifications to then do the work placements to then kind of ease that transition into the future.
Okay, good question, Matthew.
Yes. Sorry. Do you want to go first, Will?
Happy to sort of chip in. So the one thing that we've sort of noticed at sort of TNT is that there's quite a lot of stability in the sort of government-backed and local authority-backed sort of sectors. And that's probably as you'd expect in a sort of time of crisis. They're trying to sort of stabilise the economy. But, a few months ago, HS2 got notice to proceed, so that for its main works contractor. So that's £10 billion worth of contracts that were effectively signed at that point. And so the work is now underway, without any sort of, well, we're past the point of no return, I guess what I'm saying, for those to sort of be rolled out and the work to be done. So in the short term, I'm sure there's a bit of a lag because of, the current circumstances. But once those contractors have sort of got into their proper detailed design and have engaged the supply chain fully, their subcontractors will have a lot of work. There'll be a lot of project management skills required, logistics skills, all sorts of things. This is a huge infrastructure project that's taking place in the middle of the UK and sort of cutting through the middle of it. So, I'd anticipate there being sort of lots of roles associated with that. And so if you're looking to go into construction project management, it's a sort of relatively positive horizon, I'd say, at the moment in the UK, particularly compared to, say, aviation sectors. Yeah.
Cheers.
But building on what Will said, it's a really good question by Matthew. It's a difficult one. When I resettled health and safety, and then had a look, and health and safety is flooded by ex-sappers, and it's full of soldiers. So I looked at going somewhere else, not to get away from the soldiers, but I wanted to do something else. Hence my facilities management and small project management, which my first job at Battersea Builders was more like it was project management, but it was more like a senior site manager. And again, it's what's your 5-year, what's your 10-year plan? Do you want to come out immediately and be a project manager? You can do, but it's as Simon was saying, it's extremely difficult unless you have the knowledge, skills and experience to do that. So it's building on those stepping stones of a site manager, senior site manager role, working on a 5-year plan, building up to a project manager, getting, especially if you work with a tier 1 company or you work for TNT, to know their policies, their procedures, their methods, how they work, showing that you can do that. If you can do that and you can produce the work, you'll step up quicker. Or it's getting a job, going, right, I'm going to this job for 2 years to get this knowledge, skills and experience, then I'm going to move on and get something else. Slowly build your CV that way. If I could look at 5 years' time and say, right, what are they looking for? It'd be easy to say that, but in 5 years' time, construction industry is very fickle. You don't know what's going to happen next year. Luckily, in this current climate, we've been very, very strong, running sort of 95% of our projects. Very lucky. So yeah, I'd say work out a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. Look at how you're going to get to your 10-year plan. Work back on that. What courses do I need to do? What skills do I need to get? What experience do I need? And plan it out in 1 year, 2 year blocks to get to where you want to go. Bearing in mind, I did 23 years in the army. My time out of the army is going to be longer than my time in the army. So it's not a sprint. It's a gentle jog to get to where I want to go.
And Simon, just prior to COVID, the resource requirements at Turner Townsend, what were the majority of roles that you were recruiting for? Yeah,
the majority of roles was mainly project management, infrastructure for sort of Midlands and Southeast and Southwest, actually.
And do you see that continuing now, the lockdown's coming to an end?
Yeah, I would see, I can't guarantee when that is, but the upturn will see those roles come back.
Okay, Matthew.
I would say August onwards.
August onwards. Okay, Matthew, I hope that helped. We can connect you further after the virtual chat this morning if you'd like to ask anything else. Okay, next question, Ray Cogan. If you're able to put your camera on.
Hi, I'm just.
You're just playing.
Itself, here we go. So I have 2 questions. One for Simon and one for William or Will. Sorry. I'll start with. You guys have mentioned that obviously CSCS cards and SMSTS training is desirable, if not a mandatory requirement for you guys when coming onto site. For some of the guys leaving, or for myself in terms of renewing CSCS card or even partaking the first time SMSTS course, given the current climate, training providers are I would imagine quite reluctant to classroom-based courses or even getting a CSCS test. I don't know what the situation is with that. Simon, in your eyes as a recruiter for an organisation, are you guys still recruiting guys without these qualifications on the strength that you're happy for them to attain those qualifications later on because, you know, through no fault of their own, they can't attend courses or they can't get a CSCS test done at a test centre?
Hi, Ray. Yeah, good question. I think my specialist area isn't project management, but I would imagine, I think Will can help best answer that question, but I think we would require that in the immediate, and then long term probably less so. But Will, could you confirm that for me?
Yeah. So when I joined Turner Townsend, I didn't have a CSCS card. I've done the tests so that I could get one if I needed it. Actually, my none of my roles are site based, so I'm sort of exclusively in the office. So haven't required to sort of actually get the card and go to site, but the company requires that I'm able to get a card if I need one. So I do the exam. You know, they've got a record of me doing the exam, but it took me. I think a couple of months after I joined, I got it. So I'd say, from our perspective, if you're capable of getting it, that's probably what they're looking for. And it's not a particularly arduous process, as I understand it. So I wouldn't see it as sort of the be all and end all. Although it's maybe slightly different for an organisation like Mark's, where it's sort of required. I can't really comment whether you're able to get one at the moment. So sort of fighting. If you can tick the box, then you might as well tick it as soon as possible, I guess, would be sort of my take. It's worth also just sort of noting the nature of the way sort of consultancies seek further work is sometimes they'll recruit speculatively. You know, we think that we are going to have a role for someone in the next few months, and sometimes they're a bit more cautious and they'll say, well, let's secure the role and then fill it. So it's probably a bit more cautious at the moment than it would be otherwise. It's just worth sort of being aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Will, my second question. Thank you, Simon, as well, for your answer. You mentioned that moving into the project management role, that you had a procurement experience. Was that right, me saying that? You didn't have experience in procurement?
Yeah, I had no procurement experience at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite a common theme, isn't it, for guys leaving the services? So, what support did you get when you moved into your project management role to bring you up to speed on where you think you are now, and help you develop into your role?
So, part of it was actually using the military network. So, there are plenty of people in TNT who know all about procurement, right? They're genuine experts in it. So I've sort of reached out to them either by someone at the network saying, actually, you need to speak to Joe Bloggs over there, and that's been really helpful. But also, my sort of role as a project manager is not to be a procurement expert. So I need to be able to manage the process and understand what's sort of going on in it. And because I work for public sector, well, the clients of public sector organisations, they have to follow public contract regulations, and so just sort of being aware of them and doing a bit of research myself into what that may or may not involve gives you an indication of what it is. I think it can seem quite daunting because you might think, oh, I'm going to have to do everything required in the procurement process. That's not actually how it works. I go to the procurement team and say that, this is what it is that I need to procure. Can you talk me through what options are available to me? And I can then sort of do an options appraisal based on what they told me and what it is that I want. And that might include, how long it takes, or what routes to market there actually are, for example. So you're not alone, I think, is the thing I say. And I think that probably echoes back through a couple of the other questions as well. Like when you join an organisation, you're all on the same team trying to do something. That includes sort of working with the client. So I know there can be sort of tensions along the way, but generally speaking, everyone is sort of pushing in the same direction. So hopefully that's a comfort.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you very much, Will, and thank you, Simon, again.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, our next question, Charles, if you're able to turn your camera on, please.
Hi there, guys.
Hi.
My name is Charles. Can you hear me, all of you guys, please?
We can hear you. Thank you, Charles.
I have only 2 questions here. The first is the kind of openings, roles openings you guys have. My background is, I'll say it's more in structural engineering, so working on the design part of construction. I was wondering if you guys have any openings in any roles or any placement or shadowings in that kind of area.
So what we'll do, Charles, is we'll connect you to Caroline if you're not already towards the end of the call, and we'll try and support you through that. Yeah, and I'm sure Simon will be in touch with Caroline also for any roles that are available, whether it's placement or permanent. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Charles. Okay, just to stay on and we'll get you towards the end of this. Okay, Kevin Murphy, have you ever call? You can turn your camera on, please.
Hi, good morning, Angela. Good morning,
Hi,
James.
Kevin.
The question I'm going to ask, really, I suppose, is basically leaving the forces and moving into the projects spectrum, if you like. How do they tolerate sort of failure, for want of a better word? Somebody mentioned success, but very few people mention failure. And I'm conscious that project sector, there are going to be timelines that aren't met because of mitigating circumstances, COVID being the key one at the moment. Going to have a significant impact on project timelines and the cycle. And what tolerance have the companies got that? Take it when you go in at a junior level, i.e. very, very fresh, wet behind the ears, so to speak, that there's a mentorship sort of program, and are you aware of any organisations having them for the guys coming in with very little to no experience?
Going to Berkeley Homes as an example, Berkeley Homes work on 3 programs. They have a master development program. This is for my project, a master development program, a target program, and a construction program. So the construction program goes out to subcontractors. There was a 6 to 8 week float, which is a target program, and then a 6 to 8 week float again for that is master development program. And you run the 3. So you've got a bit of float. So when the subcontractors come into a little bit of problems, you've got float there to juggle your program around. But it is going back to program management. It's how you manage that. So where you might fall short on something else, it's looking 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months out of what you can juggle around, what you can pull forward, what you can push back to keep your end date exactly where it is. And that's all down to program management. And that just comes with a little bit of practice, a little bit of experience, and the construction knowledge.
Yeah.
How do they deal with failure? Not very well. Because it's generally commercially biased. Yes, you're working to a program, but it's money. And going down to, again, Berkeley Homes, if you don't finish that project and that flat house or building is not occupied, you're losing money. So failure is generally not an option. It's going to cost you. So it's sometimes it's early mornings, late nights, and juggling programs.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm conscious that, coming into this spectrum within your sphere of influence, you're fairly new to the environment, and basically you are going to make mistakes in the early days until you find your feet and establish yourself and understand the work and practices, the policies, what you're doing. It
takes time, and don't get me wrong. I'll use Berkeley Homes as an example. That's where I did most of my project management and running 9 programs at the same time. 3 programs: target management, target program, construction program, and master development program for the listed building, modular construction, and the urban realms work, and then throw in the northern escape structure for Crossrail. So pretty much 12 programs at the same time, all interlinked. I wasn't thrown in there at the deep end. It was a case of having enough time then to be able to look at a program, look how it's going to sort of manage what's coming up. And there was enough help, advice, and guidance there to get me through it. It wasn't a case of that's your project, away you go. A project director sat above me and I'd go, can you give me a hand with this? Can you give me a bit of advice on that? I'm looking a bit iffy here. What do you think I should do? Can you give me a bit of help? And the help was always forthcoming. People would always help because they never want the project to fail. As Willem said, they're one team.
Yeah.
So it is there.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Mark.
That's okay,
Kevin. And just on that point, certainly within Lend-Lease anyway, you'll have your line manager who's responsible for making sure you succeed.
Yeah.
More often than not within organisations, you're given a buddy now as well. So that's someone to ask all the silly questions to, and someone to offload to, and just chew the fat with and just chill with. So whether it's kind of coffees or beers, it's just somebody that's on your side, that's got your back, that's rooting for you. Another thing that we do at Lend-Lease is we introduce them to the other ex-military community that exists. So we create different pockets of families for them all over the organisation, just so that safety net is there. In every instance, but when it comes to just that technical competence and that capability, which is what drives the military guys and girls, your line manager and the team are there to absolutely make sure you succeed. And I think probably Mark's point, where Mark's jumps from one organisation to the other, and perhaps from kind of one side of the fence to the other, it's within an organisation's responsibility to make sure that you succeed. So anybody that turns up, they could even have 10 years construction experience. If it's been for another organisation or elsewhere in the industry, they're just going to do it differently. And that's why companies have got procedures and processes there. So it's to guide you and help you and support you to do it the way they want you to do it. So it's all there, but on an emotional piece, which more often than not is sometimes the issue, you will be given access to all these communities and all this support within. Any good employer would do that for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Angela.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, speak to you soon. And Chris Fryer, do you have a question? If you're able to turn your camera on. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes, thank you.
Perfect. So firstly, Angela, Caroline, thank you for sorting this out. It's really invaluable, the last few we've had, and then Mark, Will, Simon, thank you for coming on. So we've first got a couple of questions. First one is reference sort of pathways. I can see a quite easy link between certainly Royal Engineers, sappers, etc., engineering in the military backgrounds going into construction. Do many of your network and colleagues you've worked with over the past few years, have they come from varied backgrounds, and have you spoke to them about how their transition may differ? For example, I'm Air Force senior NCO, so I'm very much it'd be soft skill based rather than actual proper experience like some of you guys have, even though potentially limited. And the final question is a bit of the elephant in the room is maybe you could just touch on pay expectations and how that works out for you when you transitioned. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll answer the first question. I'll answer both questions, and then Will can have a go. So the first one, yes, there's opportunities there for people who don't have a construction background and construction experience. It's going to be slightly harder if you don't understand the construction processes. If you don't understand how a reinforced concrete frame building is built with the facade and the MEP and everything that goes in it, you'll struggle to manage the program. And it's understanding of how your piling goes in, how your columns go up, how your MEP goes in, how your facade goes on, met set windows fit out, so on and so forth. It's understanding that and putting that in the right order and how you can juggle it about. So that may take a little bit of reading and help and guidance while you're doing it, but there's also the opportunity to go into health and safety and get some skills and experience there. I know plenty of people that I've served with, RLC, RAF, Navy, that have gone into health and safety. That's policy and process driven, and that's all it is. Yes, you have to have a basic understanding of construction and temporary works. Again, it's a lot of reading, but it's following a process and following policy. So it's there, and the help, advice, and guidance is there as well. So there are opportunities if you're not construction experience to come into construction. With regards to pay, coming out, as long as it paid more than I was getting when I was in, that's what I was looking at. And with your, lucky I did 23 years, AFP 75, immediate pension, so that helped as well. What I wasn't prepared to do for myself was take a drop below what I was getting. Luckily, my first job paid pretty much the same as I was on when I was in, and then it was short stepping stones, and it just goes up with your skills and experience. I wasn't expecting to get out of the army and go, woohoo, project manager, I'm earning 75 grand a year. It's very rarely happens, and it's a bit unrealistic. For me, mine's was a 5-year, 10-year plan. Will?
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of echo Mark's point on sort of salaries. Yeah, I had a similar sort of point. I didn't want to take a salary cut. It's simple as that. And I didn't think I sort of needed to, based on sort of the jobs I was going for, what I sort of was confident I could deliver. Mentioning the pension is an interesting one, because I don't have a substantial military pension, so it didn't focus for me. But I've sort of spoken to people in the past who think that they should sort of try and go in with a low offer for their salary, knowing that they can top it up with a pension. I just say, just don't do that.
No.
Just if you're even considering it, then just get it out of your mind. Like, that's yours and you've earned it. And if they can afford to pay you what's required for the role, they should pay you that. So
yes,
you could just sort of cross that off. There is a bit of negotiation involved. So what you're sort of going into is trying to sort of figure out your sort of market value, if you like, and there is a bit of negotiation in that. So don't be sort of afraid to say, no, actually, I want this. And the easiest way to negotiate is to have another offer. So sort of the more offers you've got, the better. That sort of basic principle. But just be careful you don't sort of burn any bridges and make people off against each other.
But it's sorry, can I jump in, Will, just on there? And it's not just negotiating pay; it's negotiating your holiday, your working hours, whether you want flexible hours, whether you want 4 days a week, 5 days a week, as long as you put your hours in. It's completely different to the forces. You can negotiate everything, and if it works for the company and it works for you, yeah, it's try your luck. Sorry, Will.
Yeah, but just to sort of say, if you ask for the world, the world will be expected of you. So
yes.
Just sort of temper that. Yeah.
Okay, Simon, if you haven't fainted, do you have anything?
I would just say, be prepared to take a little bit less than you're expected, because what they'll say is, we'll pay you this X amount, but once you've got the relevant qualifications, your salary will go up accordingly. So I would just be prepared to take a short-term cut if it means getting the role you want and getting to where you want to get to long-term. So I think long-term as well.
I get that. Thank you very much for your answers. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, and I think one last question from Anthony Ashurst. Do you have a question, Anthony?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Basically, just touching on from the points that were just mentioned about salaries and stuff. So I'm an engineering surveyor in the Royal Engineers. I've got H&D, so I would like to think that I could walk into a site engineer role. I quite like the sound of these training schemes, so building up to site manager. But financially, I don't think that I could take the cut down to assistant site manager from where I am now. Looking out further ahead, I do want to become a construction project manager. So my question is, in your experience, probably to Mark, is site engineer a viable route into site management and project management later down the line?
They're extremely different roles. Being a site engineer, I've not had a resident site engineer. We always use consultant engineers on all of my projects I've had before. So obviously they manage various projects and form part of the contract. But looking for project management as your end goal, you need on-site experience, you need the construction experience. So for me, if I wanted to go that way, I'd do the same I did again. I'd start off small and I'd step stone up. So looking at site management, look at, especially clerk of works. Yeah, so clerk of works, you'd be looking at going in as site manager, at least site manager, a couple of years, 18 months, senior site manager, and then go from there. You've got obviously the construction experience, having been a clerk of works and done plenty of work that way. So yeah, it's salary expectations for assistant site manager. It varies depending on where you're looking to resettle and where you're looking to live. Obviously for me, I'm in London, so that the salaries in London are pretty good. But site managers pay a lot more than I was getting paid in the army.
Yeah.
So that it's not necessarily you're going to come out and you're going to take a drop. It's how much, not say how much more, but where are you going to be relative to where you are at the moment and how you're looking at 5 years' time. So I would look, explore all opportunities and have a look at what site management, assistant site management and people are paying around where you live and where you're going to resettle. And again, look for work experience. Go and speak to the local companies who have resident engineers, site engineers and site managers and say, can I come and tag along for a week and have a look? It's well worth it.
Yeah, because when I'm looking at sort of job specs, I'm in resettlement. I've got a few months left before I leave after 12 years. So when I'm looking at job specs, a lot of the site engineer roles, they're like heavily involved with the site manager and like sort of working alongside. So I'm thinking, is that a viable route? Will I get a bit of experience in that sort of role as well? And
again, that depends on the project and what's actually going on and what you as a site engineer would be doing, whereas a site manager would do with the whole site construction, be it piling, be it temporary works, fit out, MEP, whereas a site engineer would deal with the engineering side. So not so much construction, depending on what sort of site engineer you're going to be, whether it's going to be a groundworks engineer or MEP engineer, so on and so forth. What trade are you?
I'm a surveyor, engineering
surveyor.
So I've done all my I've based my resettlement around construction management. So I've done I've done SMSDS, CSCS, temp works coordinator. I've done 4 NEBOSH courses. So I'm just like planning ahead in anticipation of this management role. But like I said, I don't really want to take the massive pay cut that will be from my senior NCO acting rank at the minute to assistant site manager.
Yeah. Again, same as me. I have exactly the same temporary works coordinator, NEBOSH and all that, the same as you. And it's good because it underpins your skills and experience. Will you necessarily take a pay cut? Yeah,
definitely. Based on my research that I've done, from where I am at the minute to assistant site manager in the Northwest, 100%.
Well then, my advice is apply for the site manager's job.
Okay.
And go in for the job that you want. Go for the job that you want. Knowledge, skills, and experience get you an interview, and just kill it at the interview.
Good man.
That's what it is. Getting yourself in front of somebody and coming across personable, likable. That's 90% of the job one for you.
Yeah, Roger. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, try not to read too much into the job specifications as well. I think the job
Sorry, can you say it again, please, Simon? It froze then.
But sorry, no worries. Yeah, try not to read too much into the job specifications. I think the job specifications can be quite daunting, and there's a long list of what they expect you to have. But obviously, when you have the interview, you'll find that you're a better match to the role than you think. So, job specs can put you off, but try not to let it put you off.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, guys.
One thing I was going to say that I didn't say in my notes that I had. Every job that I applied for, I looked at the job specification, and where it's listed their key skills, I wrote, not cut and paste into that, but I listed my key skills that match their key skills requirements, which 90% of the time will get you an interview.
Yeah.
And that's it. And as I've got in my notes as well, go for the job you want, not the one that you think you might get. Because if you pitch yourself down, which a lot of soldiers do, they'll pitch themselves lower because they don't think they have the skills and experience. Well, you've got a lot of skills, a lot of experience, and a lot of knowledge. Pitch yourself high and go for it.
Yeah, it's a done deal. Cheers.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, you take care. Listen, thank you ever so much for the questions from our audience, but a kind of heartfelt thank you to our speakers. Just one final word from each of our speakers. Any advice that you would give? Mark, start with you.
Just as I said there, go for the job that you want, not the job that you think you'll get. If you want a job that you've got your heart set on, you think, you know what, I can do that, go for it. Just tailor your CV to that, look at the key skills and requirements, apply for it, and don't be disheartened if you get knocked back. Because it happens, you get knocked back, you might not get a response. Sometimes there are CV hunters out there from recruitment agencies that will phone you up, hold your CV, do the direct approach, go direct to a company, ask and do a bit of research. And if you want a job, go for it, you just kill it at the interview.
Great advice, thank you, Mark. Will?
Yeah, sort of agree to, be confident about yourself. That's an important thing. People are looking to employ people who they could work with and will be, pleased to be colleagues alongside. And I think a lot of people sort of fall into that category. And also just know, you're an organisation that is is bottom fed, and you're going to step into a world where people can sort of buy in resource at various levels, and you're part of that market. So you're never going to have to sign off and wait a year before you move between organisations again. So take a sort of longer term view. Where do I want to be in 5-10 years? And look for some stepping stones along the way. And maybe that's within one company. Maybe it's like me stepping between companies. So just be prepared to do that. And the world's your oyster. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck.
Simon, any advice?
Same as what's been echoed, really. Persistence is key. And I would also make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and you're utilising the network on there, because that will help massively as well.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you so much to everybody, and I'll pass back to Caroline to wrap up?
Okay, so yeah, thanks so much to our speakers. Another great seminar. I did forget to mention at the beginning that we have recorded this and we'll be issuing on social media. So if any of our delegates have any issues with that, please do let me know, and of course we won't. So thanks for listening. Hope it was useful. Any connections you want, please just get in touch. Work placements, they are a little bit more challenging at the moment, but we have got a couple of guys out on site coming up in a couple of weeks. So please just, let me know if you want a work placement, and generally I can source you on. Next seminar coming up in a couple of weeks will be health and safety. So goodbye, guys and girls, and hope you had a great time, and speakers. All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Take care. Good luck.